All right, call this meeting to order. Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. I would like to do a flag salute, and Mr. Anderson is going to lead us in the flag salute tonight.
Take your picture with Dan.
Yes. Yes.
Ready? Begin.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job, sir.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Okay. Move right along. I'd like to call for a motion for approval of the August 13th, 2024 regular board meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second,
A second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the August 16th and 17th special board meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Oop. Motion carries. Okay. I'd like to call for motion to approve the August 21st, 2024 special board meeting.
Move to approve August 21, 2024 special board meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any changes or additions? No? Any public comment? No?
Any public?
All right. We're gonna move right on to presentations. This evening, I'd like to welcome Betty Palmer, the district's new CTE director, to come up and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. Or you, Mr. Anderson?
So I will just say a very brief word if it's okay, because Rob was like, hey, is it okay? Can you introduce Betty? And so I was like, sure. So I want to go through that piece with you guys, and then I'll, of course, she'll come up and talk about her vision.
This is good. He put it to music.
I wish, yeah. I had a gig come in. You'd like to see that. So she started her career with the USDA Forest Service, earning an Associates of Technical Arts and Natural Resources Technology. She's worked in 5 different ranger districts in Oregon and Washington, both as a forestry technician, wildland firefighter, and a fisheries technician, salmon and trout habitat surveys. She then worked in the food service industry, earning an associate's degree in culinary arts. She was a prep cook, baker, catering. This work experience led to CTE culinary arts instructor position at Wenatchee Valley Technical Skills Center. And she holds a BS in career and technical education and training. Most recently, she has been the CTE director at Wall Lake School District in Mattawa for 4 years, maybe 5. Completed her, so fun fact, we actually went through our CTE director training together. And so we didn't really, we had some connections, and we went through, different things. I know that she went through a huge audit with that we have to go through every 5 years with OSBI, just making sure things are right there. So we're very, very excited. Please join me in welcoming Miss Betty Palmer.
Any questions? Derek covered all the ground.
Do you know all of us? Should we maybe introduce ourselves? I know I did meet with you. I'm Dan Hall. I met you at the first day of school.
Andrea Ortega.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Nice to see you again, Dan.
Thank you.
Heather Garcia Mendoza. Nice to meet you. And if you don't mind me asking, what caused you to move from Walloop to over here?
The opportunity.
Opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Well, welcome to Grandview.
I'm Scott McKinney.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Welcome. Hey, how's it? You know us.
Yeah. Well, as Derek said, I got a little bit of a background, and I kind of fell into teaching, which turned out to be quite a great experience. But in that whole process, I also was interested in leadership and directorship, and that's how I kind of shifted my gears a little bit and earned my graduate degree in career and technical education and administration. And at the same time, that's where we met with the director training program, and I was at Walluk at the time. So I'm really excited to be here and be in Grandview and met a few people, see a few opportunities. Made a phone call, thank you very much, over at Walmart and the distribution center to see what we can do with their education programs and how we can collaborate a little bit with the region. Derek and I talked this afternoon about the WSU ag station. And it just seems like some low hanging fruit there. And I don't mean that dismissively. I mean, and when I say that, I mean, it's an opportunity. Talked about the forklift training. And I'm certainly very aware of things like CDL programs like that. I watched from afar as Othello developed theirs, and I think those are really, really good programs. So I'm all ears, and yeah, whatever comes to mind, or if anybody wants to meet later and discuss things more specifically, but I'm very fond of ag towns, and even though I have a background in forestry, that's part of agriculture. And so kind of my whole association has been with ag production, whether it's culinary, forestry, fisheries, and certainly now in this position.
Could you help me catch a salmon on the Columbia River, maybe? I need a little bit of technical help. She
Get a little more technical.
Unskilled labor.
Come on. We'll have Ben share about that later. Okay.
You gotta get to the water first.
That's true. Come on, Ben, let's go.
Are there any questions or comments, or certainly how to get a hold of me at the high school?
Yeah.
I think you being here is a great thing. I think one of the things that we've learned over the last few years is CTE is something we need to push more on. And I think there's a lot that we did not take advantage of and do. And I think there's a lot more there we could do. And now that we have somebody that's overseeing that directly, I'm hoping that opens up doors to do more of that type of stuff. I'm one of the ones that helped find some of these things about the CDL and some of the different things that have popped up. People send me that stuff because I think that's a big passion in the valley and especially in our area to do a lot of those type of things. And so I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thanks, Derek. Next, I'd like to invite Lupe and Ben to come up and give us a little 20-minute spiel on
Try.
30-minute spiel.
Read fast, because I got 3 pages and I couldn't think of everything, but
Do you need a timer set?
I do. Give me, somebody give me the 2-minute or the 3-minute warning. Just get.
You just do the best you can and
So,
we'll be good.
First and foremost, thanks to Dr. Darling and his vision of having a director of safety for the Grandview School District. Especially in a time like now where we don't have an SRO. It's coming in huge, because if we didn't, I don't know where the school would be in that situation of not having anybody looking out for the safety of our students. So kudos, and the fact that I can wear this attire, badge, everything. I mean, it just highlights the things that I'm comfortable with and my experience and knowledge to be able to still carry a firearm and to be able to protect myself and the students, staff, and so on and so forth. So I mean, thank you again for the opportunity, and to you guys as well. So we did get to attend a NASRO School Safety Summit, and this was Dr. Rivera, myself, Ben, and Manuel Herrera, one of the security officers. And some of the things that we attended, some of the breakout sessions. One was a detective out of Chicago who was talking to us about the importance of paying attention to social media platforms and the leakage that comes from these. Because as we all are well aware of that, every time we shut down schools is because of Facebook posts or something on Snapchat where somebody's posting something that they're going to come and shoot the schools up, and then there we go into a panic and locking schools down, for closing them out for the day and things of that nature. So we've got some information that we can then relay over to the police department, such as templates on Snapchat search warrants, Facebook search warrants, and things like that, Instagram and things like that. Dr. Rivera was able to load on a USB. So we haven't yet got over to the police department, but that's something that we'll share with them so they can assist us if we ever need that assistance. The other one was a pretty cool session that we had involving different, this was a specific school district and they zoned in on a specific school, the playground and whatnot. The scenario starts out with a bunch of colored circles everywhere. And each one represented a group of students or a teacher or a unknown person and community members and so on and so forth. And then the information starts off with a person coming on, talking to a staff member. This is in the morning during drop off saying, hey, my husband's on the way over here with a gun and he's gonna kill me. What do we do? And she's dropping off the kids off at the time. And so can I hide in the schools? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it was a room full of a lot of law enforcement officers and a lot of school personnel as well. But it was nice to see the differences and everybody going up against, no, that doesn't sound like the right thing to do. You need to do X, Y, and Z, and then just working through that. It was really nice too. That was one of the ones that where I kind of seen everybody really, really engaged as to what steps to do and covering all their bases and things of that nature. And I got involved in it. I couldn't just sit and listen. So somebody challenged me on something and of course you take the first one and you're just like, okay, dude, well, whatever.
You can't go back to Arizona.
So that was something that I'm gonna be talking to Chris Whedon and the SOC. I really enjoyed it, and I think that would be something really cool to do with our safety leads and whatnot at every school district and kind of play scenario like that. And we also got the opportunity to listen in on 2 SROs from Sandy Hook that were there, and a parent who lost a daughter, I believe, at Stone Marjorie in Florida. And the impact that it has on first responders, parents, teachers, staff, and community as a whole. I mean, to suffer through an incident like that and go through an incident like that, I mean, it really takes a toll on the community as a whole. And it's going to take the community to bounce back and try and recover from this. But years later, I mean, Sandy Hook is almost 10 years, not more. And these officers, you can tell, are still suffering the effects of it. Seeing all the bloodshed and all these children that have lost their lives that day, it's just, I couldn't help but to get emotional because I can put myself in their shoes and it's just like, oh my goodness. And even the dad and taking his information and I feel for the dad and him saying, you know, well, the officers didn't do what they were supposed to do. Nonetheless, I should hate law enforcement, but I don't. And he's been pushing for law reforms in Florida, and all the law reforms that have happened are running through him and his crew. And that's, you know, trying to make schools safer and police, more training for police and things of that nature. And I'll touch on that a little bit more here, but I mean, just seeing the overall impact of something like that was unreal. The other thing that I saw that I really, really liked, and I'm going to be looking into, is glass film protection for the entries at all our schools. And they ended up putting this film, see-through film, on this window, and they took this big gorilla looking dude with a baseball bat, and he swung and swung and swung maybe like 30 times. He actually bent the aluminum bat trying to get through this window, and he couldn't. And that to me was like, oh, I opened it and I was like, okay, I can see how that could come in handy. So tomorrow I've got an appointment with 3M, which is a different brand, because I think Safe Haven obviously wants to sell their name and their product. I don't know how expensive it is, but I'm researching what it would cost to put that film on the entrances of the high school, middle school, and all our elementaries, just to buy us time. If somebody wants to shoot through them, they can't clear. The last thing I want is like the last shooting we had in the Midwest. The person shot their way through. Having this film, I think, would buy us minutes, hopefully. Not seconds, hopefully minutes, to delay their tactics. So then we saw a presentation on Tall Cop. He's an ex-Boise police officer who's now doing all this recon on all these drug trends. And the one biggest thing he says is vapes. Vapes are coming out with like 26,000 pups now. And he says this is like the biggest trend now for our schools. And this is something that I didn't catch on at first, and I was wondering why these flocks of kids would just go into the restrooms all at once. And it's like, well, he says, there are 26,000 pups. They're not gonna use them all, so what are they doing? They're selling them. And that's why they're using their phones and, hey, meet me here, and they've got like 10 kids and selling them to these kids, and they're all going in there and they're all taking hits off of these. And that's how they're making some of their money nowadays. The comeback of mushrooms, he says, this is one of the biggest things, start looking for mushrooms in your community, psilocybin mushrooms. The inhalants are coming back, start looking for those little CO2 cartridges and any type of like the keyboard cleaners and things of that nature. When you start seeing these in backpacks, these kids are starting to hop again. And then if you guys are concerned about fentanyl, guess what? There's like 3 different drugs that are starting to come out. One is a horse tranquilizer, something along those lines, but there's like 3 different lines of drugs that are coming out that are 10 times worse than fentanyl. He says, and wait till those start coming out. And some of those are in forms of Skittles. You'll see them, and he says, and those are the ones that are very dangerous. If little kids have left around, little kids can just pick them up, he says, because they look like Skittles.
Will
Thing
Narcan
for-
help?
Narcan will help, but he also touched up on a drug, synthetic drug. He says that some schools are seeing where some of the students are passing out, and they're giving them Narcan. Narcan can't do anything with it. They take them, they get test labs, and nothing comes back on the test labs. Which is interesting. He says, and I don't know what kind of synthetic it is or how they're fabricating it, but it's very potent and it's not detected. So then you have a student who you think is just having seizures, but yet they technically could be under the influence of this drug, and you'll never know. He says, so start looking for things that just don't add up. So then we got to see Bernie James. He's a law professor for Pepperdine University. Love this guy. I saw him the first time when I went to the first conference over in Tennessee. And I told Jose and I told Ben, I said, grab on, because this guy is gonna let you have it on the biggest push. His biggest concern was behavioral threat assessments. And that's my biggest focus. I think one of my biggest focuses this year is making sure that our school district as a whole, and I'm talking about all high school, middle school, and elementaries, that we all have our behavioral assessment, threat assessment teams ready to act. This is, you hear something, you say something, a teacher just, a student makes a comment, teacher hears, what the comment is, and acting upon it, in a timely fashion, as opposed to, well, I don't think they're gonna do anything, or because they said that the majority of the time we can prevent them from doing something that's going to prevent them from going away to prison or jail or whatever the case may be. So if we can get to them before they act out and get them their services, I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. And then not having these behavioral threat assessment teams is probably one of the biggest liabilities for school districts right now. And so if and when something happens, then they start doing the research, any red flags, and then that's when everybody starts coming out of the woodwork. Teachers, students included. Oh yeah, well, I heard him say this and this and this. Or a teacher or staff member says, well, yeah, he might have said something like that in class, but I kind of didn't take it as serious as I should have. So whenever there's any threat or any mention of any violence or anything like that, we have to get together with the threat assessment teams. And it's our counselors, it's our admin, it's me, it's our law enforcement, it's therapy counselors outside the schools if need be. But we have to get all stakeholders who have some kind of vested interest in the student, the school, and the district and community together as a whole. And it's everybody in this piece here has a piece to a puzzle. And we need all those pieces to complete the puzzle to be able to be successful in this. If you don't, and you don't do things right, we're still liable if something ends up happening. We're not immune from it unless you actually show due diligence and take every step necessary. And that was done in Denver, where they formed their team, and the student challenged the whole threat assessment because he didn't want to be searched. And it went all the way to the Ninth Circuit Court, and they sided with the Denver School District and said, no, they did their due diligence, and they were able to document a well-done behavioral threat assessment. And in there, they included searches. The kid challenged the searches as illegal against the Fourth Right Amendment against search and seizures. They ended up winning. The school didn't get sued and, long story short, if you do what you're supposed to do, and you do things right, it's gonna save a lot of headache and money in the long run. So my biggest thing is I've reached out to Chris Villeneuve, who's our ESD 105 behavioral threat assessment coordinator, and I said, hey, I really want to focus on making sure that we understand it as a whole. So I'm going to get our administrators, counselors together, and we're going to start training this here as soon as we can come up with the dates here next month. So that's one of the biggest things. Local parentis as well. He says, don't be afraid to act reasonably whenever it becomes, whenever behavior or discipline is at hand. He says, school staff can act as the parent, obviously, and discipline for behaviors and things of that nature. And I think, that was one of the things we harped on with our administrators here last week, and not being afraid to stick their necks out there we are in charge of these kids. We are supposed to act as their parents. As long as they're being reasonable and it's not something that you wouldn't do to any other student, you're gonna be fine. So let's go over some highlight topics for last year. Presentation. I did a parent presentation back in October on safety and security for a meeting there at the middle school. I also participated with some Century 21 students. We made some tamales. That was pretty cool. I assist with the monthly crisis response for all schools. We observe all the crisis responses and provide them with our feedback. We also initiated a locked door policy during school instruction. So when school is in session, students are in class, we ask teachers to lock their doors.
And close them.
Close them and lock them. And so it's just one step closer to when we actually go into a full lockdown, that they don't have to worry about the door because the door's closed. Or let's say your door's already closed and somebody's wandering halls. You don't have to worry about this person peeking into your room because your door's already locked and secured. And like they say, there's never been one school shooter that has ever breached a locked door. It hasn't happened. Will it? The Stone Marjorie shooting incident was him shooting through the window and killing all the classmates inside the classroom because of the access through the window. But they've been instructed to push away onto the door side and away from the view of the window. So that's something that we've been working on, and I really like it. The other one is I've started up my grade classes again, and that's one of the biggest things that I plan on pursuing. As one of my end goals is to try to minimize the gang involvement with their students. I started with the fifth graders last spring. And I went through the 6 weeks. I'm going to do another 6 weeks in the fall with the next fifth grade class coming up here. And then in the winter quarter, I'm going to do 13 weeks with the sixth graders and double up. And ultimately, the plan is to try and minimize gang involvement in the schools, which I think is one of the hottest topics right now.
And this program is one of the best rated research-based programs for gang prevention that exists in the country.
It's been vetted, and they said that it is legitimate, and I've been doing it for 6 years before, so while I was an SRO for the school district, and it works. And I absolutely love it. So when I was told that even as a retired law enforcement officer, I can continue to do so, I jumped on it. I'm like, Dr. Darlene, I need a letter saying that you're willing to sponsor me, and the chief, I need a letter saying that I retired in good standings, so I can continue doing this. And he's like, well, so that got taken care of. So one of the other biggest things that we've been doing is our tabletop exercises. And this is to prepare us for when the big atom bomb hits a Grandview school. We're practicing a school shooting during the cafeteria, during lunch at the high school. And that's what we're prepping for, is mass casualties and how we're going to react or how we're going to respond and work together with our local law enforcement, Yakima Fire, Grandview Fire, and all our surrounding agencies, and doing the whole reunification and figuring out that piece of it as well. And so this is like one of the biggest projects that eventually we're going to get to the point where we're going to do a full scale, where we're going to have actors, we're going to have people with blood on them and things of that nature. And that's to test our capabilities, and for our local police department to test their capability and seeing if and what hiccups they're going to come up with on the way. And the biggest thing is I just want us to iron out all our wrinkles so that if and when it happens, because it's a matter of not if, but when, that we're going to be ready for it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that all these other schools, if we don't learn from all their mistakes with reunification and things of that nature and all the things that fell through the cracks, I just don't want to be in those shoes. When something bad happens, I want to make sure that we're prepared.
With that full simulation, is that with the kids?
It's not gonna be with kids at school.
Okay.
They're gonna be actors. There might be kids if their parents are willing to sign waivers on them, but it's not gonna be during school. It's gonna more than likely gonna be like a Saturday morning.
Okay.
So that the kids aren't affected, because RCW says that we can't do real life scenarios of that nature with kids during school, because we don't want to traumatize kids.
Right, because they.
So that will come
Right.
against us if we were to do something like that. But if I decided that I want my two kids in this, and I talk to them ahead of time, which they will be. So I've got two boys, and then I know Dr. Dogan has a couple, and we can keep asking for other parents and see if they're okay with doing this. Obviously, we'd like to have like 20 to 30, because we want to simulate the buses and things of that nature, and getting kids on the bus and scattering 5 kids per classroom and pretending they're full classrooms, and just try and make it as real as we can get, because I just, there's no substitute for it. And so we're gonna do our next tabletop exercise with everybody, all the key role players, on October 30th. And that's gonna be all of Granby, Yakima County State Patrol, Sheriff's Office, Prosser, EMS, ALS, and we're gonna try and get everybody in this room. And we're gonna break it up into planning, logistics, finance, operations, and do the whole ICS. And we're gonna do a unified command with our police department, our fire department, and we're gonna get this thing going. And that's one of the biggest things that Ben has really been pushing me with and assisting me with. And his military background and his familiarity with ICS is really coming in very, very, very handy. So that's one of the biggest points that I'm trying to. Also became a safety care trainer last year. And that's through the SPED program, and teaching all our SPED affiliated staff members on how to properly physically manage students and how to prevent getting to the point where you have to go hands-on. And what if you do go hands-on, and how that looks, and what one person or two person stability or third person stability or chair stability, seated stability. So I go through all those motions. I'm not one of those people that obviously shies away from going hands-on with people. I love to go hands-on with people, but I just can't do the arm bars or wrist locks or things like, you know, so I have to retrain my brain it's all soft tissue, nothing involving the joints and things like that, because we don't want to hurt these kids. But it also teaches me, how to do de-escalation, and the staff members how to de-escalate, but when worst case scenario happens and you have to go hands-on, how to safely do so and put this child where he can't hurt himself or herself or can't hurt anybody else. So this summer, we actually trained 40 staff members with the assistance of ESD. So we're all trained in safety care, and it sounds like school insurance, quote me, that if you're not on safety care, school insurance was not going to cover you this year. So we are all, okay, we're not doing right response or CPI or whatever that was anymore. So that's all gone. I have to do my refresher in October, so forget it. I'm gonna head back up to Spokane and refresh as a trainer. You have to do that every year, so that's up and coming. Monthly meetings, gang meetings, intel meetings with our superintendent, assistant superintendents have attended, and all administrators at all buildings, where we bring in the police department, who at the time worked at the schools, so it was easy for them to have access to all our students and know what was going on. We're going to continue to do this. We meet like once a month, but we talk about all the gang impacted students and what they're doing off campus as well, and how that affects the schools, and taking that into consideration and knowing who's hanging out with who, so we can see who their friends are out in school. We share that information with the police department, and they're telling us what they're doing out here. So we're coming together to try and work through some of the issues that we're seeing at school. Future highlights. I know I didn't hit on everything, but future, one of the things I did this year, and thanks again to Dr. Dolan, is I was able to bring Jesus Villa, who was an ex-law enforcement officer from Pierce County, who was SWAT member the whole 9 yards. I mean, he's been doing school safety seminars for 27 years, and he did a crisis reality training here for our district for our certified staff. Is that correct? Certified, right? I'm still certified, classified. Sometimes I don't know which one's which. 2 classes, 200 plus employees, and afterwards, the stack of papers, we didn't bring it, but it's a stack of papers, 5 out of 5. We absolutely loved him, Lupe. He was awesome. Thanks for bringing him here. But I want to say thanks to Dr. Dawn, because I brought it up to Dr. Dawn and Dr. Pivetta, and I said, hey, my brother, who's a teacher in Seattle, was really high on this person, and I was like, okay, I'll have a chat with him. And we talked for about an hour on the phone, and I was like, okay, I think I like you, dude. Let's see if we can work you to come over to the this side of the mountains and put on a heck of a presentation. Not just once, but twice. And it's so good that we're actually in the process of bringing him in again for the
October 11th.
for classified, because they heard about it and they were coming up to me and saying, Lupe, that's not fair. And I was like, no, it's not. It isn't. And my hope at that point in time was to get everybody on the same page, because I was really impressed with this individual. And one day maybe I can be just as good as him, and then maybe I can charge $4,000 to come down. I probably shouldn't have brought up the money, but nonetheless, good people are very hard to find, and when you do, I don't think you can put a price on safety. And that mindset that now all these teachers are going back into their classrooms and saying, man, I really need to change everything that I've got up in this room, and how am I going to take cover with my kids and things of that nature, and lights on or off, whatever the case may be, blinds, or making sure that all windows are that have blinds during a lockdown. And that's one of the biggest things we focus on is on lockdowns, is we go through every single door and we try every door and we try to get in and try to ruse them to let us in. And if we can see inside their classroom, then we'll tell them to adjust their blinds and things of that nature. I don't want nothing shown. So that was crucial. So like I said, we're going to bring him back. I've talked about our next tabletop exercise. I will continue my grade classes and introduce Ben as our new safety liaison. I forgot to do that. How rude am I? And comes in very handy now that we don't have an SRO, because it's so easy to get just sidetracked. And my biggest thing is that if I'm in classes for 6 weeks and then 13 weeks, I want somebody else looking after the district. So when I'm busy teaching, I think Ben's going to come in handy to go through all the meetings and whatnot while I'm trying to do my thing and trying to suppress gang behavior and things of that nature. So having Ben, he's godsend to me. And I really appreciate that Dr. Darling was able to work with me on bringing him on board. Thank you again. So I talked about administrators and counselors being trained on behavioral threat assessments, making sure that and I am scheduled to go possibly to a single officer response active shooter in Colorado. That's still in the, see if they've got room for me. It's through Frank DeAngelis Foundation. He was the principal at Columbine at the time of the incident. So they've donated an elementary school to him and his foundation, and they've turned it into like a war zone. So you go in there and there's smoke, there's fire alarms going off, and you suit up, you go through these hallways, and every classroom door has a wrap around like a theater screen, and you've got an airsoft gun and you address the threats. And it's a single officer response. So if I'm ever in a school and there's a school shooter, I've got at least a little bit more experience on how to manipulate a school when I'm by myself in search of an active shooter, and how to address every hallway, how to address every doorway. So that's in the plans. And then we're planning on attending a school workplace violence seminar in Kennewick for 2 days. And this is a combined effort with law enforcement and school officials. And so they'll do both training separate in their own identities. And then we're going to come together for a tabletop exercise. And I'd like to really see how that's going to work out, because I think that's going to give me a little bit more knowledge and experience when doing our tabletop here with our police department. So the goal again is to equip more schools. One of my biggest things is I want to try and bring a PA system to McClure. How? I don't know, but that's one of the biggest safety things on my list, is making sure that McClure has a PA system so that they can advise of crisis situations when they're happening, and more cameras possibly at all the elementaries, strobes for the elementaries to notify or let the public know that, you know, we are in lockdown, and I want blue strobes everywhere so that the public knows not to go anywhere near. And I want to continue to educate our parents on their responsibilities of what to do during a lockdown situation, because my worst fear again is if something ends up happening, is that all parents are going to rush over to that school. And they're gonna compromise the safety of their own kids by doing so, because they're not gonna allow first responders to show up on scene, because when mayhem happens, they're gonna be leaving their cars in the middle of the road, and they're gonna be running up to the schools and making things 10 times, if not 20 times worse for us, as we're trying to sift through everything that's going on. So continue to do that, and ultimately try and strive towards a gang, crime, and drug-free schools. That's all I got for you. I know it was a little too fast, not enough time, but nonetheless, that's what I got in a nutshell for now.
I got something to add a bit.
All right.
Well, you left out one thing. Well, one of the things I think is important.
Yeah.
One of Lupe's visions was to make sure when Jesus came down that everybody got trained. We got to see the presentation he discovered, well, we classified it, isn't even on board yet. So talking to Dr. Rivera, he was able to secure, like you said, it's gonna happen. What he left out was that when he talked to Jesus, he specifically also wanted if there was any training for bus drivers. That's the part you left out, which was important, because even the bus drivers had a 2-hour session that Jesus set up specifically for them to be trained on. If they do have a person with a weapon or any kind of weapon, or even if it's a gun, what can they do as a bus driver? What are some of their responsibilities? And one of the things he talked about was how to do the brake check. Because you'll see them in the mirror, so you don't need to just stop. You don't need to keep driving. What are you gonna do? And you put them in that scenario. And he told them, that's one time that you can do the check braking. What is it? When do you do it? Why the cost of that? And again, he's describing when you do the check brake, when you're seeing the perpetrator, whoever it is, with whatever weapon it is. Yeah, the kids are all gonna go forward too. He explained that. But the objective is that you wanna disable the individual, throw him off of balance. And that's what he explained. He went to that whole scenario-based training. He recommended to Chris that drivers should practice that. Because if you don't practice it, you're not gonna do it, first of all. That's just the reality. But I wanted to make sure that you all understood that bus drivers got it as well. And when the classified command is already figuring out with Dr. Rivera, how also the rest of the staff, maintenance, grounds, kitchen staff can also participate in some of that. So it's almost, will we get 100%? Probably not, because some people will be out. I can tell you what, it'll be definitely over 90% of the entire school district will have already gone through this scenario-based training and the information that they have in it. Today is a perfect example. Today was our first lockdown procedure over at the middle school. And we evaluate them all the time, all through last year. This year was one of the better ones. We walked in, Graph has got the whole entire group, clipboards, maps, instructions. Everybody knew what they were gonna do. Not to say that they don't know what zones that they got, this is more specific. And it was more specific based on some of the information that Jesus has shared with us. And then the action review. And so the difference between the ones we've seen last year and this year was the amount of silence that was there. Because last year, kids were still talking, you still hear things moving around, it was silent. And so that's the big difference. Yeah, it's the teacher's perspective changing based on what they see, because when they were at the training, they seen the actual footage of the shootings that happened in these other schools. They actually got to see it and then listen to the presenter talk about it's not gonna happen, but it did. And I think that really opened up their eyes where they're like, you know what, it can happen. And that was one of the big differences between last year's and this morning's. We're doing an evacuation drill at high school. All the schools are gonna be doing, we always observe them to give it input and feedback. But it's also, George took a good step in tasking them for their specific observations and then bring that back to the group. And a lot of times we miss a lot of that because everybody's got to go back to their class or whatever it is. This time, everybody together, got the information, and they put it all together and sent it out already as an email. But I think part of that has been the influence from the training that Jesus gave. It's just changing that whole mindset that teachers have.
Good job.
Questions for these two?
You guys have a handle on it.
Yeah.
Most important thing in the school though is safety of the kids, the staff and safety first. So.
That's the thing, I mean, I got 2 of my own, like I said.
Yeah.
I want what's best for them, so I want what's best for everybody. Let's get an excellent life and be a parent, like knowing that you're sending them to school, you trust that the schools are gonna protect them. And that was one of the things that I won't forget that parent from Florida say, and he said it to everyone. I trusted in you guys. You guys said that I could trust you. And that resonated with me, and that freaking gives me the chills every time I see him, and I can still picture him saying that I trust you guys are gonna take care of my kids. So seeing my own two kids, I know what he's talking about, and it just, that's what motivates me, and that's what drives me to just do what I have to do. And I won't stop until we're where I want to be, where the school is, the entire district is on the same page, same sheet of ice, so.
Yes, that's state.
The board, you're invited to attend on October 11th. There's gonna be 2 sessions, one from 9 to noon. And then from 1 to 1:30 to 4:30. And I can send you guys the invite if you guys would like to.
Highly
participate in that.
recommend.
Very, yeah. Very.
I've been
Well, it
invited.
was the last year when we went to one of the security ones and the guy was from north of Spokane, where they actually had a shooting
They actually
type thing
had
up there.
Freeman? It's Freeman.
Yeah, Freeman. One of the things he was saying was that they learned from that was everything was done over in the cell towers. And when they started having all the stuff going on, it crashed the cell towers. And they didn't have any communication with anybody. So police couldn't talk, fire couldn't talk, parents couldn't, I mean, nobody. And that was one of the things they learned. It's a learning thing that what do you do? And how do you fix that in the future? Do you have a different mechanism or whatever? But that was one of the things they learned from that he brought up to us. Lessons learned.
Well, I want to thank both of you. It's a large undertaking to have such a detailed response plan and everybody all hands on deck, right? Everybody on the same page, because that's what's going to help make it work within our school systems, but even the community with the county and everything. And I love the part that you mentioned about trying to work on those behavioral assessments. I was listening to somebody the other day who was sharing that she does wraparound services. And you mentioned about vaping, you know, and how that's starting to come up, and she's working with a 6th grade student, and this mom's basically works, you know, in the nights. So the student's by himself when he gets home, etc. And obviously he's gone all day. So there's not a lot of family connection, single parent household and stuff, but the student was bringing vapes and selling them. And she ended up finding out, ended up making a connection with the student. They got the support and services they needed. They actually got him into extracurricular activities. And she said he was one of the success stories. 9th grade, he's got like a 3.4, 3.5 GPA when he was like at a 2 point something. I can't remember exactly. But bringing in that component when it's not the critical major type of responses that are needed is also very helpful in ensuring that our students also have opportunity, I guess, to get services they need that might help prevent some of this too. So I appreciate even that connection. I know your law enforcement background may not always lend to that, but you're cognizant of it and you're making that effort. And I think it's going to be very helpful because some of our kids, I think, just need that connection, that support before, you know, like I say, it gets to something else. So thank you both.
We're gonna stop the bleed. We're gonna become trainers this Thursday. That's right, stop the bleed. And then come to find out that legislation says we have to have medical backpacks that have tourniquets and whatnot. And I'll share with them that we already took care of that last year.
Yeah, got some pretty.
Brad okayed me to spend some money. And so I got these cool tactical backpacks with gauzes and tourniquets and things like that for every school. So if we ever have an incident, we've got like access to 7 tourniquets for 7 kids and things of that nature, or staff members. So legislation is going to require that. We're already on top of that, and we're going to have 2 trainers to include Cindy, the nurse, will be a stop the bleed trainer as well. So then we'll be able to train the entire district on how to use properly gauze and tourniquets and things like that.
Is that a little more in depth than just a first aid?
Yes, it's a little bit more than your typical first aid. Yes, we're talking treating gunshot wounds, stab wounds, and things of that nature. But
Will you
lots
guys
of that.
also learn how to do it with items that aren't technical medical equipment?
And that's like belts and
Right.
things of that nature. I mean, when it comes to saving someone's life,
Right.
your shoelace,
Mhm.
you know, you might lose the limb because of the pressure, but I'd rather lose a limb than the
Right.
life.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, it's a matter of, you know, so we'll be going through that training here on Thursday as well. It's just a lot of training, and I want to continue to go to all these trainings. I just want to immerse myself in everything, the latest and greatest trends and whatnot when it comes to safety, because I'm thirsting for more, and I'm sorry that I bug everybody. Hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. I
Sorry, passionate.
No, I think it's great. I appreciate what both of you guys do for us, you know, I have grandkids in the district and I'm like you, I want them to be as safe as possible.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We got a great program that we can count on, so thank you guys very much.
Welcome. Thank you guys for all your support.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for
you.
coming,
Yes.
guys.
See ya.
All right, Dr. Darwin, you get to follow that up.
Good luck.
You stole my thunder. All right, so just quickly a recap of, we had a busy week last week. We brought in Jeff Utek, who's actually a world-renowned trainer. He's been working with governments from the United States to Thailand to Singapore to all over the place around technology implementation, AI responsiveness and such. And he came in and he did an interesting kickoff where he started talking to all of our certificate staff about the differences in the generations. And how each generation values specific things and doing at the workforce. And then also the technology that's existed for the different generations and how they interact with technology. And it was really a kind of a different spin on it, but I think he set it up perfectly to then lead into this current generation and their use of AI and how we can interact with it. And then he went and did breakout sessions with the secondary staff and breakout sessions with the elementary staff and how they can use AI to make their jobs better, to be better differentiated instruction for students. And we got a lot of good feedback on it. So, and he met with principals at the end too, and give us some great tools on how to use it. The principals attended as well. So it was a good first day. And then that was Monday. Tuesday, they had a Jesus with the active threat training. So a little bit more surreal kind of a training. Then Wednesday, we did our kickoff. Dan did you all proud by standing and delivering for welcome the staff back, and I appreciate Director Stegeman for being there as well. And I introduced a strategic plan, focused on how being our best self and doing our best work is really our climate culture work of the district, and how we're really striving to make sure we meet the needs of individuals. And the strategic plan very much focuses on each kid every day, whatever they need. We're day one, I rode two bus routes, one with Sandra and one with Chad, two very different styles of drivers, two of our more veteran drivers. But both really resonated the importance of that first smiley face kids see in the morning. It's probably one of our best drivers. And each of them met them with a handshake, high five, or a hug. You know, they're super excited to see the kids, and the kids know they're welcome to love when they get on their buses. So it's really heartwarming. It'll be probably the last year we have Chad, because he lives in Yakima and just got married last weekend. And so, yeah, he'll be heading back up that way after this year. Then visit every school all day long that day, and have been in them since. And so, great first week of school. We're in phase 2 of the executive strategic plan, where we're actually going to start putting into practice. And got Jesus Villarmosa on the brain. Jose and I met with the crew today, and Jose is kind of spearheading doing the internal implementation of this plan, where he's assigned five heads to kind of oversee each of our 5 priorities, and they're going to start mobilizing this work internally. And then I'm in the process of getting together all our faith-based partners and our business partners around how can they help us mobilize it externally and support it from the wraparound. So we have a contract with the same group that did our strategic plan to help us create big 10-inch window stickers that are going to go in each building that wants to partner with us to be one of our partners around each one of these plans. And so I'm hoping to launch that meeting at the end of September, beginning of October, if we can get things rolling fast enough, and depending on how long it takes for them to get this process going. But we'll have a big launch with that external process as well. And then you got to meet Betty. We're super excited to have her. As soon as we found out that out of sight, out of mind, Curtis was leaving, Derek immediately said, I think Betty Palmer would be interested in coming down. She'd do a fantastic job. And so we were fortunate that he was spot on, and she's doing a fantastic job. Just so you're aware of some of the upcoming things, I have a monthly meeting with the city of Grandview, so I'll be meeting with them on the 28th. Friday morning, Jose and I will be meeting at PNW with the Roots to Wing program. I kind of teased this last week about the medical opportunity for some of our students to do. And then we'll have our coffee with the soups this month, because the 2nd is a holiday. We're going to do the AM on the 3rd and the PM on the 3rd also, instead of doing it over 2 days. Middle school has their open house on the 4th. Smith has their open house on the 5th. There's a grade admissions redesign, and I kind of shared with you, we currently have the grade admissions program where our students are automatically accepted into 6 universities based on certain scores. We're piloting an automatic funding for that program through Central. Around, they're gonna automatically qualify for the college grant. That's as long as you receive some state assistance program. And a lot of our students don't know about it, so they don't apply. Well, this will do all the application for them. So basically, it's a guaranteed admissions and guaranteed scholarship of grants. And so we're doing a listening session with them the 9th and 10th. I might still find out more about that. High school has their open house on the 11th, McClure on the 18th, and Harry Thompson on the 26th, and then we're on October. We're 1/9 of the way this is going already. What questions do you have?
Are there any programs like the one through Central with the trade schools? Tech and those kind of guys? I mean, those places where we could, they could get some help with that type of.
I don't know. That's a good question. Betty, I put Betty in contact with Central because you can, and Betty and Derek weren't aware of this, but you can CLEP classes at Central where you can take a comprehensive exam for like $50. If you score high enough, you earn those credits instead of having to take the class. We're talking about how can we get our students a leg up on some of these credits they can't take in person. But that's a good question for me to have them also dive into about like these opportunities. Central previously hadn't even offered an AA, so they're really expanding their offerings rather than just packaging a BA and above. And so I'll have to ask more about that.
I paid 4 years at Central for my daughter, so come on. Where was this when my daughter was in this?
I know.
But like Perry, when you get out of school, if you go to sign up for that, it could take you 2-3 years to get in. There was a way that a kid was a sophomore and that was something they were shooting for. Maybe they're able to get on the list to where when they do graduate, they can go straight in and not wait. Because then they get off on other things.
Yeah, they get distracted. Yeah, that's good.
So
We'll bring that up to her.
And then circling back to the grade admissions for CWU and the other colleges, right, that they're automatically accepted to?
Well, right now it's automatically accepted into Central.
Only Central.
The Central's piloting this and their Central, he's trying to beat ASU to take over the world. ASU thinks they could take over the world, but I think President Wolpert is trying to give Central
Give them
ASU
a
their money because he's really thinking outside the box with a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we do have the automatic admissions program that was our first year last year.
Yep.
Did we receive any feedback on that and how many students were accepted? I know you guys were.
Yeah, I haven't
gathering
received
data.
the data from them yet. They're still compiling it. Yeah,
Okay.
and then I just got contacted by another university. I don't know, I think it's PLU, but it might be a different one that wants us, that also has starting to offer this. Not, that wasn't part of the original 6, and so I'll get, I don't know the name off the top of my head. Yeah.
And I guess my only other question is how are we getting this information, keep promoting it with families? Because again, large barriers is just getting accepted in the application.
Yeah.
Second barrier, funding, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get this information out there? I know the CT would be amazing to try to branch out to like our tech schools. But while we have these areas and venues and keep building on them, how do we share this with families so that they can break down those barriers?
Yeah, and I think that's, well, I know that this is all happening at the high school level. The counselors, the high school, they're heavily promoting this with families in their literature and their welcome back information nights. So if you have a high school student, especially juniors and seniors, you'll start hearing about this really heavily because they start, a lot of colleges start accepting students as their juniors.
Yeah.
So letting juniors know and also let them know, once we get more information and officially launching this pilot for the guaranteed scholarship program, we'll do a huge promotion on that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I was just talking to one of our students, I don't mean to go off track, but Enrique, one of the boys that was he was a senior last year and he was on our strategic planning committee. I was talking to him because he was working at La Mercado down here in the street. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? What are you gonna do for plans? He goes, well, I can't go to university because my parents don't want to sign the FAFSA. It's because there's a fear of signing the government stuff. And so he's got my number. So he and I are gonna chat about what we can do to help him get his paperwork finished so he can get into college because he wants to go. There's just that barrier that still exists for him. So we know that's a big fear out there that we have to overcome.
Well, thank you.
anything else? Okay, we're gonna move on to let's call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move to policies and procedures. I know these were sent out to everyone. I'd like to have the following list for the first reading. We'll take action on them at the next board meeting, but make sure you take a look at them and be prepared for the next board meeting to take action on those. Anybody have any comments or questions on those? Now? Mr. Shreve. This time we'd like to go to recess the regular board meeting to go into a budget hearing. Sorry, Josie. I don't think you have to leave, do you?
No, it's not.
You can stay.
No.
It's not one of your meetings where everybody has to leave.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
I'll bring the noodle.
If we have to stay, you do too.
Right.
So we suspended that one. We started the next one. Correct.
So I can share.
Oh, sorry.
And do we quit?
You're right. You're right.
Can we still record or we stop recording?
Oh, no.
It says. Host disabled
There we go.
participating screen.
I got you.
Do we have to, say recording?
No, I would think this needs to be recorded, I would think.
Right, right, but it doesn't need to be separate recording, that we can chop it up and we'll let Jesse handle that.
Yeah.
There was one more thing I forgot that I just found out about, so at the end,
You do it at the, from the board.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you have a PowerPoint in front of you, I handed it out earlier. And so in the budget hearing, we're supposed to go over a quick overview of the entire budget. And of course, then what I've done is summarize it down to about 30 slides, which means 30 slides, but I'll briefly go over it. But we have had additional sessions before this. So first thing we'll go through is going to be enrollment. And in here, you've seen this before, where 23-24 enrollment was at right here at 3349, and we're projecting to be at 3364 for 24-25 to be conservative. The real numbers for 23-24, we're at 3,426 as an example, and so there are the numbers. The enrollment came in higher than budget, but the interesting fact is that the enrollment only grew by 5 FTEs from the year before. So we were conservative on the budget, thank goodness, but we only had an additional 5 students from the year before. On here, and I'll just go real quick, this is information for you to look at that you might have at your fingertips, and this is actual enrollment from 2018-19 all the way through 23-24, and then what we projected for enrollment for 24-25. Talked about that in the past. This graph here real quick shows the actual enrollment. The top line, the blue, happens to be what the actual enrollment was for each one of the years, 2019 to 2023-24, and then the budgeted numbers below, which yes, I always try to budget lower than the actual. The gap, we like to keep the gap about 25 to 50 students. Sometimes it's larger, but that's not the intent. The intent is to keep it 25 to 50. The next.
So Brad, how do you come up with, and just crazy talk here, but how do you coming up with dropping as much as it shows on here student wise? Where does that come from?
So I use the cohort survival method, which takes a look at the last 5. Actually, I moved down to 3 years instead of 5, and it shows trends and it uses percentages. And it shows where the grades, not necessarily kinder, because I have to go back and look at birth rates, those types of things for when it comes to kinder. But the others, what is the survival rate of somebody moving from 1st grade to 2nd grade, or 2nd moving to 3rd? And those percentages are in there, and it shows that the enrollment continues to decline using those numbers because the elementary is lower. And
So it doesn't take into account housing developments or a new business coming into town potentially or something. That doesn't come into play in how you came up with this model or how this is used, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
But if you use that model, I would imagine that we would start to see that trend up if it actually impacted enrollments.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a conservative model.
But we've actually been, since 2018, according to this, we've actually slowly gone pretty much down most of the time.
And most of them have been, that's why I have this
this chart right here that shows the elementaries was the top line, that's elementary K-5, and it shows the enrollment continue to come down from 2019 to 20 through 22-23, which then ripples into the middle school and into the high school.
Mhm.
And the elementaries are looking like they're starting to flatline, which means they're not necessarily coming back and increasing, but they're not decreasing as much as they had in the past. So to answer part of your questions, that is starting to show some of those trends where the housing developments are coming in, whether or not we're having additional students or new students to the district, time will tell on that side of it. And the black line here is the high school. High school is looking fairly steady. Even the projections for the next few years. And the middle school shows that decline because of smaller class size coming through. The elementary school we discussed earlier, how that class is coming through. And then eventually, that's why the high school, up on the top, starts to tip off a little bit in 27-28, because if those new housing developments do not produce additional students, you may call it, look at that.
Based on the
Then the high
trend.
school would see this trend coming through at the same time, lowering. And real quick, we had talked about this earlier about the staffing. I was concerned, you know, it's my concern as well as your concern. What are we doing with this decrease in enrollment? How are we doing as far as staffing? Again, we've talked about this before. Certificated staff this year is decreasing by 8 FTE. And you can see the list there where the pluses and minuses are, positions are increased, decreased. Oh, the whole thing disappeared. Let's get it back. And then on the classified side, there's small little FTEs coming and going. You can take a look at that also, that shows that the director position increased 21st century, which is a grant, and the new security director, which I had just visited this here a little bit ago today. And working through the elementary positions, and then the middle school had a Europe position. I better leave that mouse alone. That's not working so well. Over here on the certificated side, real quick, is yes, we had additional ESSER positions. Almost all, but not all ESSER positions were eliminated on the certificate side. The two that we're continuing to maintain is we had the middle school counselor. We talked about that in our budget sessions, and that person was ESSER, but we maintained that position. And the other one was at the 9th grade level. There was a ESSER position up there doing 9th grade success, and it was really important to the high school to maintain that position. And so we did maintain the position and moved it into CTE. So the funding source becomes CTE. Quick little pie charts here, talking about showing the revenues, and you can see most of the revenues come in from state and general purpose. And then most of the expenditures are regular instruction, then you have support services, the different breakdown over here on the side. Federal stimulus, it looks like the same color, but federal stimulus no longer exists for next year. And so that's really compensatory ed. This is maroon that's in here. It's compensatory ed. It is not federal stimulus. Then overall in the budget, and please interrupt and ask questions. Have them. Then revenues, here's our local taxes. It's 2.1 million. You can see local non-tax, general purpose from the state special purpose. Special purpose would be any type of grants, as well as special ed's considered special purpose. Federal special purpose, those are the grants we have that are federal dollars, such as Title I, Title III. All the titles are in there as an example. And then we have from other agency associations, that's like Save the Children would be part of this this last one, associations and other agencies, as well as there is a contingency in there of 1 million. So 1 million of that is a contingency in case we receive additional dollars from the state or a grant to be able to have the revenue. And then there's another contingency on the other side that also has the expenditure side. So the two balance out, 1 million on the revenue, 1 million on expenditure. Just to be able to keep the operations moving if we do receive additional dollars. We've talked about this slide before. So the overall expenditure would be 67,323,000 operational expenditures. The summary here is showing the beginning fund balance of 9.5 million. The revenues we refer to as 66 million. The expenditures I just mentioned, 67.3 million, and then operating transfer out 1.1 million. Same as you're looking at the board meeting tonight, we may or may not actually transfer the full 1.1. We might do a reduced amount, but it's in there just in case. And as you all know, I've always come before the board and say, okay, it's time to transfer, or it's not time to transfer. We have that discussion. In here, we're required to do a 4-year projection. And so you can see 25-26, the beginning fund balance, which was the ending fund balance on the previous document, a 7.1, projected revenues and expenditures.
Yeah,
And it shows the projected revenues based upon the enrollment that we'd have coming in. Most of it's based on, the money from the state is based upon enrollment. That is our #1 driver. And so that's where
and that's what you're basing on, based on the trend of the enrollment going down, the income is gonna be less, but you didn't change how much we're spending. You're showing the same staffing across, even though the enrollment for your budget.
some of the. It's on, and actually the document you have shows you the staffing going down slightly, but because of the cost of living, things that are coming through are kind of
Yep.
and keeping those expenditures high, which. Yes, Dan, very, very good observation.
Why would 27, 28? Why would we be better off in the ending than the beginning, where we bring in more money?
So in 27 and in 2027, the anticipation is that it's time to run a levy. So our levy goes on through 2026. And so it's time to run a new levy, and hopefully the levy will come in high enough to not leave money on the table from the state. Raise it to at least $1.50 per thousand. We've talked about before, right? And then you get this additional. It may or may not be 800,000, but that's what it's been this year if we would have got at least $1.50.
But I'm sure you're also estimating the state's gonna increase their pay to the school district based on a percentage that you increases every
The
year,
IPD.
like a cost of living increase.
Mhm, yes,
So that keeps going up every year.
it does continue to increase, yes.
But
Yeah.
not for all the staff on paid out of the grants.
Say it one more. It actually all staff, so I didn't quite hear you, Chuck.
Well,
So
but the staff that's being paid by a federal grant, you don't get a raise from the state for them.
correct, that's correct. But the staff still receive,
They still get their raise, we
Yes.
just don't get reimbursed for it.
you're absolutely correct. And then here the transfer to keep the budget and keep the ending fund balance from dropping too fast or too much, set it back to 600,000. That can change, see what happens this year for enrollment and those types of things, but projecting out the transfer would be reduced down to 600,000. And then we're required to present MSOC, which is material supplies and operating costs, and to show across the whole board the different programs that are supported by the state. Program 01 is basically at all the classroom expenditures in 01, for example, unless it's a grant. 02 happens to be the CLC program. Is 02, 03 is a no dropouts program, a re-engagement that takes place over YVCC. And then program 97 is all the support, district-wide support, anywhere from the school board, superintendent's office, HR, grounds, maintenance, custodians, is all part of that support. Any of it supports those types of things. And this shows that the overall MSOC, I better not be touching, I shouldn't touch that mouse. So, and here it shows that overall, the MSOC is provided by the state on the revenue generator. They call it the F203's revenue generator. Says the total allocation be 4.7 million. Come on, mouse, don't mess up on it. Okay, so 4.7 million, and then all the expenditures are going through are 6.5 to show a difference of a negative 1.8 million. And we had negatives all the years. So every year we produce this, and it has shown those in the past also. It shows that we're expending all those dollars provided by the state for MSOC. And then we have here capital projects. Capital projects, which is in your binder also, we had listed in there, maintenance school building. Yes, you've already approved that, and the fence project you've approved. However, you're very much aware they're not able to get permits until September, and so they're all showing up in next year's capital projects. Then also the HVAC project, part of that is going to continue through September all the way through. It depends if they can finish October 31st or November, and that's that one HVAC project. We also may take a look at some additional ones. We'll take a hard look at how we can provide those provide the HVAC projects and moving forward, that would not cost quite as much as they have in the lot with the first two projects we started with. District-wide paving projects, we've been looking at paving projects throughout the year. Be like, for an example, the back of this building where the kitchen used to be, it's dirt back there, possibly do something at where the triplex is at, where the bus loop used, well, they still use that bus loop. Take a look at that. We had expanded it years ago with gravel, but never came back and paved it. And take a look how we would pave that. Might have to put a retaining wall in there, those types of things. As one of the projects. Now, portable contingency, just in case we have to purchase additional portables is in here. And then miscellaneous projects and purchases as a line item. And that takes care of the projects as well as if there's additional purchases of property we might want to acquire. And then the leasehold tax, which is a small dollar amount, but it is in here. It's required on the property we have at the Wilson Highway property. Long and Sons, they pay for the lease, but then we're also supposed to pay this tax to the state. We do tax them and it's a pass through, so it just shows up in here as another expenditure. Again, the numbers estimated beginning fund balance of 5.9 million. Federal, that's from that ESSER finishing up what's going to happen in September for the HVAC project, and then other financing sources would be $1 million if we transfer the $1 million in next fiscal year. And total expenditures of 4.2 million, estimated 3.2 at the end. And again, here's a 3-year projection, looking at expenditures moving forward and the transfer of $500,000 because we had it in the general fund to transfer them, so it would show up in here, which may or may not happen, but I have to project out saying, okay, this is what we're thinking. This is our best thinking at the moment. And then expenditures are moving forward, would slow down 725,000, 525, 525. And of course, I have to let you know that any of these 4-year projections, they can change as more information is provided, things we find out that we need to work on, those numbers can change in those next 2 years. Debt service. This is to pay the bonds. We have 2 bonds for the high school, they're both high school bonds. And to pay those 2 bonds, we have a beginning fund balance 1.2, revenues at 2.8, expenditures for paying the bonds is 2.8 million to pay the bonds this next fiscal year. Down below, you can see the assessment in the budget is assessing 2.9 million. And that works out to $1.66 per thousand of assessed value, projecting that. And that's just to make the payments. Like I said, again, when we sold this to the voters, when they voted on it, it was voted to be $3.65 per thousand. So we've done very well. As assessed values have gone up, that's really helped to lower that and spread it out, especially these new housing developments that are going in, as well as other developments that are happening throughout. I know you're very much aware there were also a couple of house facilities that were built, and that's helping also on the taxes and spreading out those payments. And
we can't go in and raise what we charge on that to make a little money out of that, can we? We have to do whatever that works out to. We can't decide to go in there and instead of charging $1.66, charge $1.80.
Yes. However, the limitations that are on the board, the limitations have to be that the reserve as of December 31st, we're not supposed to have more than about 2 to 5% as we start to move down. And so that's where the limitation of the ceiling is. Now we're above that at this moment in time, where we're starting to bring it down. We also don't want to have the debt payments continue to incline. Every once in a while they spike a little bit, but we don't want to have the assessed values spike. I know I jumped a whole bunch of different subjects.
No, I understand.
You don't want to have assess a lower number. I'm going to go the opposite direction. If it says
Right.
2.8 and all of a sudden, hey, we've got it down. Oh, now we have to go from 2.8 and assess 3.33 million and go, that's a big tax increase. But to really answer your question, I'm sorry, went off, is we're not able to assess more than we need.
And we would have to leave that money in that debt service fund anyway, right?
Yes.
Then that doesn't accomplish what I was
I should have started
asking
that,
about.
but I like that.
For a levy, we can control the funds.
Right.
For the bond, it goes.
For
towards the-
Debt service, we can, okay.
And when the voters approve the bonds, they also approve for us to assess whatever it takes to pay those bonds. So in the budget, you're approving this 2.9 million, and that's what we'll give to the county assessor to
Mhm.
assess.
Okay.
And then the 4-year projection in here are the, number one is just looking at the debt payments. Here are the debt payments coming across 2.8, 2.896, 2.934. So they're trying to be steady. They're having years that they do spike, and I don't, there's not one in the next 3 to 4 years, but they do periodically spike. When I say spike, these are going up about 40,000 a year. There might be one that goes up, there is one that goes up about 60. So. Any questions on debt service? Oh. They didn't have my volume on, otherwise you heard the bus reach.
Let's do a break check.
Break check, break check. Well, let's see here. What we got going now?
Yeah, we did fire someone for that.
That bus driver didn't brake check you this morning, did he?
No, they give me a line.
Okay, let's move on. But
We did a good job playing corners, though. Turn the corner really fast, and slam into the wall.
So on the transportation vehicle fund, which is buying yellow school buses and only yellow school buses. We show a beginning fund balance of 9,900,921,000, revenues of 223,000 next year. The transfer, the $100,000 if we transfer, total expenditures 1.3. That's just building capacity to pay for the one bus that's going to show up here in September, since it hasn't shown up yet. The one with air conditioning we ordered 2 years ago, and then ordering probably 2 buses this next year. We're looking at 2 buses to order again to keep ordering buses having to come in, and taking a look at if all of a sudden we're able to acquire a grant for electric buses. We definitely would bring that back to the board to discuss it. But if we can have a grant that would pay most of the fees on electric bus, it'd probably be nice to finally get into that market. Given that in 2030, we're required to have electric buses. If that's still 6 years down the road, legislature may change what the law is. That may change. But we could take a look at them, and hopefully they've developed the batteries, those types of things for these electric buses to come along, and also allow us to put in, and some of the buses have fuel fired heaters in them, because there's electric buses enough, but they wouldn't let us, some of the grants say electric only, and that's all you can have. But we'll need to have some heat in the bus.
They can throw coats in with the bus.
Lost in family.
Blanket.
Yeah, we
Get
have to
coats
sell
for all
for
the
that,
kids.
that'd be good. So,
Yeah, coats for
coats
kids.
and hats. Jeez. So. And again, the 4-year projection here is showing the estimate getting in 25-26. If we actually spend all the money, it would be 44,000. If we do not, the number would be greater. And then moving forward, we expect the depreciation coming in, which is the money, the revenues, and the revenues we have for transportation vehicle is the depreciation the state taxes. That's where the revenue comes from. And ASB here up on the top left, I thought I'd show really quick. It shows each one of the buildings. There is a contingency in here. So it's one of the buildings, and one of the groups, maybe the high school, decide they're going to have a huge fundraiser they didn't anticipate. There is contingency, so they can actually exceed it by about, well, not the one group, but we have 30,000 buildings for contingency for the revenue and the expenditure side. The elementaries, the reason elementaries do not have much to begin with, or even zero at the end, the only fundraiser that goes through the elementary this time happens to be the book fair. The book fair they have. The other fundraisers they do them all within inside the general fund. And the reason we're inside the general fund real quick is because the general fund allows them to spend on everything that ASB does and more. So in other words, in the years ago, they were using their ASB funds they were raising to have AR reading goals, and they would give them award them some type of an award, right, for the reading goal. And that's not, you cannot legally do that in ASB, but general fund you can. So we moved them all in there. They still do what they want. It just sits in a different fund. And the middle school and high school, for the most part, since they have full-blown ASBs, most everything runs through their ASB, if it is in fact ASB. And I put down there a real quick summary for what the high school, they have general, they have athletics, classes, clubs, and trusts. All these numbers in here, the 1,003, 2, 3, 4, 6, those are numbers assigned by that we receive from the state. The state gives us guidance, says this is the categories they should be in, and so those are not numbers that we necessarily assign. The generic ones in the top tier come from the state. And that's how they categorize it. So again, the estimated beginning fund balance 201,000, revenue 610, 621,000 expenditures for net income balance 189,000. And Heather does a great job. Heather Rich, she's the one that works with each one of the ASBs, goes out to middle school, high school, and has all the clubs and turn in what they were going to spend the next year. Here's our fundraisers, here's what's the fundraisers, and here's our expenditures. And so at the high school level, middle school, they could do it through and do all those pieces. And at the elementary, just works with the principal saying, okay, here's what we anticipate you'll do in your book fairs. Didn't want to forget and give credit for Heather does a really good job. And the rest of the budget here, I should, before I finish here, make sure to give credit to my entire staff. They all work very hard to put everything together. All of them. And it's pretty time intensive for them to go through and put these things together to do a great job. And then here's the rest of ASB for the next 3 years. Any questions? Try to be quick.
Great job, Brad.
And Gene, I'm just gonna leave this up here because when we get ready to approve it, I've got one more slide to just show one slide of the budget adoption.
We're done with the budget here.
Hmm?
Are we done with the budget hearing?
I am.
We're moving back
Any
to-
questions?
Yeah, any questions? If not, we'll move back to the general meeting.
Okay.
No questions. Thank you, Brad, and thank you to your staff as well.
Thank you.
Good job, Brad.
Okay, so now we're back to the regular meeting. We'll move on to new business. I'd like to call for a motion to approve resolution 1, scheduling school board meetings for the 2024-2025 school year.
Move to approve resolution 1.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next thing we have, Mr. Shreve, can you please review this interlocal agreement with us between Prosser and us?
Yes, we have a girls swim team, and we do not have a pool that has water at this time. And so we have an interlocal agreement that's before you to approve that we can use the pool facilities in Prosser.
And this is just renewing an agreement we do every year anyway, right?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I'd like to call for a motion to approve resolution 2, matter of fixing and adopting the 2024-2025 fiscal budget.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Mr. Shreve. Mr. Shreve, can you, I've lost the right word. Oh, the bids for the, fuel?
Yes, we put bids out there in the month of August and received 2 back in. We worked with 3 local distributors, RH Smith Distributing, Blouse, which is now Valley Wide, and RA Powell, which is Christensen. 2 bids came in, and 2 bids that came in happened to be from Valley Wide and then from Christensen. Valley Wide's bid came in at 14 cents above rack, and Christensen was 15 cents. So I'm recommending we approve the bid from Valley Wide. And a little bit of history is we did this 3 years ago, and we just continued to award it to Christensen again because we could do that for 2 additional years. So this contract also has in it, in the bid opening had in that we could award it for 2 additional years as we take a look at how things work out this year. So I'm recommending that Valley Wide, and that's where the buses currently are fueling up is at Valley Wide, even though Christensen has the bid.
They subcontracted with them or something like that, right? Or,
They have an agreement.
yeah,
So I call for a motion to approve the fuel bid recommendation as presented.
make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, I'd like to call for a motion to approve resolution 3, matter of transferring funds from the general fund to the capital projects fund.
$500,000.
There's $500,000 at this time, yes.
I make a motion to approve
I second.
resolution 3.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Finally, we're gonna get to Josie.
Well, I want to say thank you to the board for approving all those resolutions and budget. Thank you very much.
I know we give you a hard time, Brad, but you do a great job for us.
Thank you, Brad.
Brad's office has asked that we hand sign a couple documents before you leave today. I think it's one.
Can you pass them around? Yeah, just pass them around. One was
Just
one is the transfer, correct?
This one is
Number
the
two's-
The transfer.
transfer of funds. is
Transfer
this
one,
one.
give the county treasurer right away tomorrow morning.
This one's just you. This is for the interlocal with
Because,
us.
they have deadlines. We want to make sure you don't miss a deadline. This electronic ones don't make it back in time.
Yep.
What was the second one there, Gene, was?
And it was just for Rob for the Prosser interlocal.
Oh, okay.
Gene, thanks.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Jane.
So we'll need to stop that as soon as he goes
As
out.
soon as Brad shows the other slide.
Yeah,
Oh,
Brad's got
they-
the slide.
But they already passed it, so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't need to woo us anymore?
No, it was just a summary of-
Isn't it a self-pass?
Was it one of these?